All right, so in this video, we're going to go over assignment 00, which was the review that you were given in the first day of class. So if we bring up the assignment sheet here, you'll see that under the requirements, the first thing to say is the first thing it says to begin by creating a folder. So I know a lot of you haven't necessarily had me in the past for a class, but all of the folders are going to be named the same for this particular semester. They'll all start off with DP2 underscore, and that just means Digital Publishing 2, followed up by your last name, followed up by your first name, followed up by whatever assignment or project number I give you. So that's what we're going to go ahead and create first. So I'm going to come here on the desktop and add a folder with DP underscore 2 Fouché underscore Sean underscore A00. So that's where I'm going to put all of my InDesign files, all of my assets, everything that I need. In fact, if you look right here, I already have the A00 assets folder already downloaded and on my desktop with all the various information that we need. So we'll move on into this. Now, for the purposes of this video, I'm not going to go into every single one of the 5 individual cards you were expected to create and lay out because it's a lot of rinse and repeat. So I'm only going to create the very first one, which was the Thinking of You assignment. So we're going to start off here, and I've already downloaded the A00 assets.zip file from Blackboard. I've gone ahead and unzipped it, and again, if we take a look at this, we have several very large images, like this one right here. The Thinking of You image is this one right here. There is also an Illustrator file, which has several different kind of titles that we'll be using. There is a logo for the company, and there is a piece of text, which of course we're not going to get into that. And then there is a barcode that is actually saved as an EPS file, which is an encapsulated PostScript file. So we got some information to work with here. We got some assets to work with. So let's go ahead and continue. We verified that we have the zip file downloaded, and it does have all the assets that the assignment sheet says it does. So as I said before, this task was to create 5 different greeting cards. We're not going to go over 5 different greeting cards. So let's just go ahead and get into this. So we're going to start off here. It says document size needs to be 7 inches by 10 inches, non-facing pages. So if we jump over into InDesign, and we're going to go ahead and create a new document. So here in the new document, of course, you could start off by going to print and choose one of the presets. You could choose a design or a layout that you've done recently, anything that you've saved as a template, but we're going to actually work over here. So to get started, what I like to do is I want to see if there is a specific name for this particular document that it needs. In fact, it says this document is going to be saved as greeting underscore cards.indd. So I'm going to call this, instead of untitled 1, greeting underscore cards. Next, I need a document size, so the width and the height. Again, notice mine are set in picas, but I've given you inches. In fact, it says 7 inches by 10 inches. Well, you could do one of 2 things. You can either change your unit of measurement to inches if you want to do that way, or for those of you may not realize you could do this, in InDesign, anything that has a unit of measurement, you could go ahead and type whatever abbreviation. In this case, I'm using the inch mark, which looks like a double quote, but it's actually an inch mark. And when you do that, it'll automatically, it being InDesign, will convert that number to whatever the unit is currently set to. So in this case, 7 inches is the same as 42 picas. So neat little tip if you didn't know that. So, and then I need 10 inches on the height. So I'll go ahead and set up as 10 inches on the height. It is not facing pages. And again, if some of these terms are a little unfamiliar to you, maybe because it's been a while since you've had Digital Publishing 1, or maybe you just forgot it, or you haven't gone over it, that's fine. Don't worry about it, because we will be going over some of these terms throughout the next couple of weeks as we kind of go through this kind of review section of the semester. Next, we come in here and we see that we need to have margins of 1 pica and 6 points. That's right here. And an 1/8 inch bleed. So that should be 1/8 inch. So I apologize if anybody actually put 8 inches. So we'll go ahead and do a margin here of 1 pica, 6 points, and a bleed of 1/8 of an inch. So 0.125 inches. There we go. So we have the bleed set up, we have the margins set up, we have it set up in the right orientation with the proper width and the height. And again, we can go ahead and change that to inches, and you can see that's set up properly. And we are good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and click create, and that will create our first document. Now, in this case, if we come back over here to the folder, there was a sample that I gave you, and this is what the sample looks like. Now, in this particular case, if you'll notice, this is a 7-inch by 10-inch document, but the artwork is up here on the top, and it's inverted 180 degrees. The logo, barcode, and of course the text that we have down here is all pretty standard as far as if I were to come back here into the document, I could pretty much be able to figure out where those need to be placed. But one of the things that I wanted to check to see if you were aware of being able to do was how to set this top image and this illustrator title as it's shown here in the sample without going and placing the image and then manually rotating the image 180 degrees. That was part of the, I wouldn't necessarily call it a trick. It was just one of the things that I wanted to check to see how much information or how many different techniques or skills some of you have been able to retain or learned or picked up on from Digital Publishing 1. It's not a big deal, just one of those things. But follow along, because I think if you're unaware of what I'm talking about, or maybe you saw some individuals in class actually do this and you're kind of curious how this was done, I'm going to show you right now. So to start off with, if we come back in here, you'll say that the top half, 7 inches by 5 inches, of the page will be the front of the card and include the design rotated at 180 degrees. The bottom half of the design will be the back of the card, include a barcode, price, copyright, company logo, so on and so forth. So the first card, what we're going to do is thinking of you. So I'm going to be using that thinking.jpg, which again is this one right here. Okay. And there is a artboard in the Illustrator file called from titles.ai that has thinking of you. So we'll definitely want to make sure we use that title when we place it. Specifically, we want to make sure that we have the show import option set up properly. Again, when we get to that, I'll show you exactly what we mean. And if we get into this, it says the next set of instructions: rotate the spread and place the image using a full bleed 7.5 by 5.125 inches, and right-click the image's frame, choosing the fitting option, fill frame proportionally. Okay, so if we come in here, we're going to need a full bleed image, and I'm going to come in, and first thing I want to do is I'm going to rotate this 180 degrees. Why? Because I want to be able to place the images as they need to be shown. So imagine right now the image should be up here at the top, flipped upside down. What I want to do is I want to take this particular layout and I want to rotate the entire canvas so I'm looking at it from the other end. It's almost as though if I were to get up and walk around the table and look at the actual other end of the document. So to do that, I'm going to come over here into the Pages panel, and I'm going to right-click on the pages. And from here, I'm going to come down to Page Attribute, and then I'm going to rotate the spread view 180 degrees. Now when I do that, it doesn't look like anything actually happened. But if we look over here in the Pages panel, you'll notice there's now a circular arrow that actually shows up next to the spread. And what this is telling me is that if I move my mouse over it, this view, the view of my canvas, is actually rotated 180 degrees. So the bottom is now the top and the top is now the bottom. Okay? So now what I need to do is I can come in here and I can create a frame that will hold, whoops, I hate the new trackpad on the MacBook Pro, just saying. I can now create a frame here in my document that is going to be full bleed. Now I believe I said it was 7.5, but I think the bleed was set to 1/8 of an inch, so that really needs to be 7.25. So then I need to have the height of this box be 5.125 or 5 1/8 of an inch. So after I've created it here, I can come up here into the ribbon and change the height to 5.125 inches, and there we go. Now I just need to make sure I position it so that it is set up on that bottom margin. Okay. Let me go ahead and increase the zoom on this just so everyone can kind of see what's going on. All right, so what I just did was, if you'll notice down here at the bottom, this red is the bleed, and when I resized this, it resized it outside of the bleed. So I'm just going to drag this up so it snaps to the bleed. So the point of having a full bleed image is, of course, that the image goes all the way off the edge of the paper and into the bleed area. And what this allows us to do is that later on when we go to trim it, which is this trim line right here, which is actually the size, the physical size of the paper that you've set up. When you trim it, the idea is that you want to trim off some of that image, because if you take the image just to the trim line and then you try to trim it, you have to be absolutely 100% precise in your trimming. Otherwise, you're going to leave like a little white line, and that never looks good. So we want to have a full bleed. So now that I've created a graphics frame here, I'm going to go up to File, click on Place, and after there it is, click on Place, and I want to go ahead and let's go to the desktop, and I want to choose in the assets the thinking JPEG. Now notice down here there are a couple of options when you go to place an image, and we'll come back to that in just a minute. So just file that away in just a moment. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this, and there we go. Now it's a fairly large image, and as we placed it in here, there's a lot of information that's actually hidden. We can't actually see the entire image. So the instructions said I needed to right click on this image, and I needed to come down to fitting, and I needed to choose to fill the frame proportionally. So if I choose that, now what has happened is InDesign has resized that image to fill up the entire size of that frame. So if I were to take a look at this image itself, you'll see by clicking on this little reticle in the middle, the image itself actually extends past the horizontal of that particular box, but it doesn't on the vertical. So what it's done is it's resized it so that the height proportionally fits exactly the height of my box. Now the width goes past it, and that's fine. But if in doing so the width was too small, and you get it with the white bars on the end, it would have done the opposite. It would have filled up the horizontal to it match the box exactly, and then the vertical would have kind of overflowed the box itself. But we'll get into fitting again a little bit more, and you'll get used to this as we move on. But that part of it is now done. Now, notice when I place this, even though in the sample we have here, the information's on the top, right? The image, the title's on the top, and it's inverted 180 degrees. The advantage of using the rotation of the spread is that I can now place the image just as I expect it to, and I'm not placing it and then turning it around or rotating it and then trying to position where it needs to go. I'm rotating the spread and then placing the images, and then I can rotate the spread back the way I want it. In fact, it's kind of hard to see on my screen here, but if you were to do this and you went back and actually look at the thumbnail of page 1, you'll notice that the image actually shows up on the top of the thumbnail. So little trick here about rotating spreads. So the next thing we want to do is, as we're coming in here, it says we want to use the Thinking of You artboard from titles.ai. Now, the thing is, if you're not really familiar with InDesign, or excuse me, Illustrator. Illustrator allows you to create multiple artboards, and each individual artboard is kind of like a separate canvas inside of Photoshop. So if you look over here, we actually have, I'm just previewing this on my Mac, I actually have 3 separate artboards that the Mac is picking up on. And each one of these artboards has a different title of text. So I want to use this artboard in this particular graphic. So how do we do this? And it says here, we want to make sure that we use these show import options when we're placing this. So I'm going to come here into InDesign, and I'm going to start off by clicking somewhere in the pasteboard area, because I don't want this frame still selected. Because when I go to place this in, I don't want it to replace the image. I just want it to place it. So I'm going to deselect that. Then I'll go ahead, go up to File, and click Place. Now I'm going to choose the titles.ai. But if all I do at this point is click that and then click Open, what will happen is that InDesign will just place the first artboard it finds, which in this case is Friendship. I don't want that. So I'm going to click this little checkbox that says Show Import Options. So I'm going to click Open now, and I'm going to get this particular box. This box, this window, will allow me to actually cycle through. If you look, it says Total Pages 3. That really should just be artboards, but it is what it is. And I can cycle through all the different artboards until I find the one that I want. In this case, I want number 3. That's the one I want to place. I can also choose how I want this artwork to be cropped, if I want it to be cropped. If this was a PDF and I had crop marks that were built into that PDF, InDesign here could understand and recognize those crop marks, and you could do all sorts of really great things. So I want to place just the page I'm currently previewing, page 3. I want to use the transparent background, and then I'm going to click OK. So now I get a preloaded cursor, and if I click somewhere over here, whoa, and then InDesign did a total fail on me. Let's try that again. That is a bug of InDesign. That should not have happened. Let's try this again. Let's start by creating a frame, placing it, finding number 3, then clicking OK. There we go. Okay. When you get the preloader cursor, when it is rotated, it should have automatically placed it properly, but that's a bug. We'll talk about that later. All right, so in this particular case, if you'll notice, my frame is smaller than the actual image itself. So the image, the image is larger. So I'm cropping some of the image. So I can fix that real quick by right-clicking, going to fitting, and I can fit the frame to the content. And there we go. Now, in this case, the instructions basically said that, let's see, where did I say? Place the Illustrator tile and align it to the top left margin and set its width to 3.5 inches, so on and so forth. So the title was in. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and I'll put it over here just for the time being. Okay, so that's how to go ahead and rotate and place images, and there we go. Now when I'm done with this, I'm done with the top, I can now rotate the spread again, right-clicking on the page inside of the Pages panel, go to Page Attributes, go to Rotate Spread View, and I can clear the rotation. In doing so, now I am seeing the document exactly the way it's supposed to be. There you go. So then the next steps are really just simple, right? Placing the graphic for the logo, placing the graphic for the EPS for the barcode, and then doing some text. And that's pretty simple, right? We can either go up to File, we can click Place, we can choose the logo, we can choose the barcode. I'm going to uncheck the Show Import options. And then I can go ahead and place, the logo there. I can place the barcode here and manipulate them however I need to as far as the sizes. And then, of course, you've got the text. So the text is real simple, right? You just create a text frame, type whatever you need to, set up your fonts, your type, and align it to where it needs to go. Those are all fairly basic. But I wanted to show you this because I wanted to make sure everybody was on the same page when it comes to being able to rotate the spread view, being able to place an image, set up your fitting, as well as being able to place an Illustrator file and utilize different artboards. Now, the same technique for the artboards could be used in multiple page PDFs, for instance, or even now Adobe Photoshop has the ability to do multiple canvases. So there's a lot of techniques that actually go into this. So there we go. Obviously, I didn't 100% complete this, but I don't want this video to go too long. If hopefully you guys got that right. The other things that were in the actual document itself were saving it, creating a package, and creating a PDF. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, I am done and I'm ready to finish this out. I'm going to go ahead and save this to my folder that I've created. So I'm going to save that first. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a package. Now, I realize some of you probably haven't ever dealt with packages before in Digital Publishing 1. To give you a quick kind of run through as far as what a package is. Typically, when you go to press with a document, you'll be sending one of two formats to a printer. Either a press-ready PDF, in other words, a high-quality or high-resolution PDF, or what I like to send, which is what we call an InDesign package. Now, a package is basically a folder that InDesign creates and then makes a copy of your InDesign file, as well as all the assets and all the fonts that go into making up your document, and copies all of it in this one encapsulated folder called a package folder. It is that folder that you can then zip up and send to a printer. The idea here is that when you send that to the printer and they open it up, they have every single thing that they need to recreate your work. Furthermore, one nice thing I like about sending packages as opposed to a PDF, when you have a relationship with a good printer, if you send them a PDF and there's an issue with it, you're the one who's going to have to go back and make a correction resave a new PDF, send them a new PDF. But when you have a good relationship with a printer and you send them a package, since they have all the files there, if it was something as simple as one misspelled word, or maybe they've got a CMYK mix issue and they've got to change maybe there's a Pantone color that they've got to adjust, or maybe there was a CMYK color when it should have been a spot color for a Pantone, they can make that adjustment right there inside of that file because they have everything right there. And that does help. So a couple things to think about when it comes to creating a package, but how do you do it? It's really simple. You just go up to File and click Package. Once you've done this, you're going to get a package summary. Don't worry about any of the errors that we're mentioning here. We'll go over exactly what all of this means, but the basic bare bone version of making a package is go to File, Package, you'll get the summary. You simply click Package, and you'll get some instructions. Don't worry about it. Click Continue. After you've done that, it's going to want to know, where do you want the folder? Well, I want the folder in the assignment folder. And it's got all these wonderful little options right here, which means I'll copy all the fonts, it'll copy all the graphics, it'll update all the links in the package, which is nice. And it'll even include an IDML file, which is a backwards compatible file to earlier versions of InDesign, which again, if they don't have InDesign 2018 or 2019 and they're still working on CS6, they can still open up your work. So always want to be able to include this. One thing is it says it will allow you to actually also include a press-ready PDF, but don't choose that option because, to be quite honest with you, this version of creating a PDF is very basic and you miss out on a lot of the options when it comes to creating an actual PDF. So I usually leave that off. But now that I'm ready, I can go ahead and click on Package. It'll give me a quick warning about making sure I'm not stealing any fonts, and I'll click OK. Done. So now, in the folder that I've created here on the desktop, I now have my InDesign file, my lock file, and I'll get into lock files later if you're not sure what those are, and now my package folder, which has a copy of everything that I've created. So then the last step is now I need to create a PDF of my work. Again, creating PDFs quite simple. I'm going to File, and this time I'm going to choose Export. And when I choose Export, I'm going to have an option to export out as a PDF or any number of other options. And we're getting into a lot of these options this semester, including the interactive PDF, the EPUB file, specifically the reflowable version of it. And of course, you have the ability to also save out a backwards compatible file here, an IDML file, which, by the way, quick sidebar, for those of you who are using CC at home, you're probably going to have newer versions of CC available before we have them available. So if you ever run into a problem where you can't open up a file on campus that you've created at home, it's probably because of this issue. So one way you can get around that is at home, save out when you're done, export out an IDML file to go along with your InDesign document. And that IDML file will open up on campus. So quick tip. But in my case, I want to create a print PDF. So I'm going to go ahead and create it here inside of my assignment folder. I'll click Save, and now I get my PDF options. So in this case, I want to choose a press quality PDF, and I want to go over to Marks and Bleeds, and I want to choose my crop marks. I want to show my bleed marks. I want to use the document bleed settings. That's it, and I'm ready to go, and I'll go ahead and click on Export. And once the export is done, up here by this little rocket ship, there will usually be a little vertical kind of progress bar, and it was there, but you'll have to rewind the video to just trust me, it was there. But it goes real quick. Once that little vertical bar disappears, it means your PDF has been created. So if we go here inside of my document, you'll see here is my PDF, and there's my PDF with my crop marks and my bleed marks, and that's it. So if you have any questions about this particular assignment, go ahead, send me an email. Again, I apologize I'm not there this week in person, but hopefully this will kind of demystify some of the things that were involved in this. And of course, really the rest of it was just a matter of just kind of a rinse and repeat. I'm not going to get into the master page part of the assignment because I want to talk about master pages on Monday. So we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail, because after reviewing each and every one of your assignments that I picked up tonight, and this is Monday night when I'm recording it, I noticed there were several people who didn't quite understand the concept of a master page or didn't utilize master pages. So not to worry, it's quite all right. We can go ahead and go over that next week on Monday. On Wednesday, there will be a separate lecture. So there we go. Thank you very much. Thank you for everybody who showed up today and turned in the assignment. You already have your grades in Blackboard, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with on Wednesday. Thank you.